What's going on, gentlemen? Today we're going to be talking about all the tools that you need to diagnose and repair modern electrical systems. My name is Nestor Mendoza, and I have a vlog on my YouTube channel where I talk about business and how to run a successful auto repair shop. We also talk about tools, marketing, sales, everything you need to know. So make sure you check that out also. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the stuff that you're going to need to repair electrical systems. Now, before we start, I want to make sure that you guys know that there's a lot more equipment out there that you could purchase, but these are all the tools that I use on a regular basis, and it gets me through essentially any repair and diagnostic work I got to do on any electrical system. Now, if you guys are, veterans, been in the field a long time, please chime in and give me any more suggestions of tools that I should add to this collection. I would love to hear you guys' input. Also, make sure that you guys check the description box. I will put a link to all these tools in the description box to Amazon so you guys can pick them up. I make it easy for you guys so you guys go get those, and pick them up very, very easily. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the stuff that you're going to need to repair electrical systems. Like always, you're always going to be needing a good set of strippers and crimpers. You always need good strippers. Everybody knows that. We like the strippers that work. Okay, after you get a nice set of strippers, you're going to get some crimpers. Now these strippers, I like them because they're really easy to function. Now you can use these strippers underneath the dash, and it makes it super easy. You don't have to, like the old strippers, you would have to clamp them and then push off the wire. But with these, all you do is you grab the wire, okay, and that's it. That's all you do, and the wire gets stripped. It's a beautiful tool. I've had this one for a long time. I will put a link in the description below. When you get a nice stripper, you want to get some nice crimpers. You want to crimp that butt connector or whatever you're gonna do. And this is the best one I found. This one is from Blue Point, but I have found an AST that I will put in the link in the description below. The reason why I like this one is because it gives me so much leverage. This little pivot here gives me so much leverage when I'm crimping butt connectors, and the other reason I like it is because I could get underneath dashes and crimp wires that are really hard to get to. So it'll crimp it and it's good to go. The other benefit too is that this tool gives me like 3 different jaws. These jaws are interchangeable for different types of butt connectors, ones with shielding and some that don't have any shielding. I do have the adapters for those. So this is a really nice set. Definitely recommend you guys pick a set. After you guys strip the wire and have to solder it, let's just say you're underneath the hood, you definitely want to solder your wires and not crimp them using butt connectors. So you want to get a good soldering gun or soldering stick, whatever you guys want to call this. This one is from Snap-on. I will put a link in the description below to the Snap-on one, but I also have an alternative that I like to use. I like to put the Snap-on on here just because it's Snap-on. But I will put a link in the description below to a one that is comparable to this one. This one is propane driven or propane powered, and the propane goes in here. And this one is, I like it because it actually does a job. A lot of the electrical ones are a little bit clumsy, and I like this one because it's very nimble. I could get into really, tight spaces with it, and it does a really good job, and it heats up the torch, the stick here, and it melts solder, no problem. When you're using this, you're gonna need some solder, so make sure that you pick some of that up. This one is, this is the rosin core 0.031 thickness, very small, and it's really good. I will put a link in the description below. After you do that, you wanna use some electrical tape. This is liquid electrical tape. And I like to use this for different purposes that I'll go into in a little bit later. But you always want to get a nice little tub of liquid electrical tape. Okay, when you're using this, I recommend you guys pick up this little bad boy right here. Now this little thing is a little stand that holds your wires together while you're soldering them. I know a lot of you guys have always been out in the field and don't have an extra hand. And this bad boy here is a magnetic base, and you have your little alligator clips that go into it and they hold your wire. It holds the wire while you solder it. It's pretty awesome. This thing has come in handy for me, especially since I'm a one-man shop. This thing comes in handy, and these things are detachable also. So they're detachable and they clamp on, and you go ahead and you know, solder your wire right there. So definitely a good thing to have. Okay, for repairs, that's essentially it, boys. That's essentially all you need to do wiring repairs. Butt connectors, crimpers, and holders for the wire, and then a good soldering gun. You're good to go. Now we're gonna get into the diagnostic side of things, which is a little bit more in depth. I'm not gonna go into detail on how to use some of these tools. I'm gonna explain to you what they do real quick, and then I'll put some link in some videos in the description box to tell you or show you exactly how to use some of this equipment. The reason why is because this isn't gonna be an in-depth video on how to use these tools. It's gonna be what to get for new mechanics or guys that are been in the field that don't know about some of these tools. That's what this video is for. It's not to explain how to use each and every one of this pieces of equipment, because sometimes we go really deep and it takes a long time. But anyways, first things first. All right, boys, first thing is on the list is gonna be the test light. We're gonna need a good one. This one is a very simple test light. The wire is about 3 feet long, no big deal. Really nice test light. It does everything I need it to do. After you get a test light, you're gonna need a nice little power probe. Now, a power probe is a tool that gives whatever circuit you want 12 volts. It gives it power and it gives it ground. You gotta be really careful with this thing because you could burn some circuits up. You could even burn a computer up if you power up the wrong wire. So be really careful when you pick up and start using your power probe. Make sure that you know exactly what you're doing when you're using this tool. You could also use it as a test light, because when you just probe a wire and it's 12 volts and it's hot, the light will come on giving you how much voltage is going through that wire or circuit. So you could also use it as a test light if you wanted to. The wire is really, really long and it clamps up to the battery, positive and ground. You need 12 volts to power this bad boy. So really nice thing to have. You test starters with it, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you use that, or get yourself one of these because you are gonna use it. All right. After you get your test light and your power probe, you are gonna need a really nice and comprehensive DMM. A DMM, or a digital multimeter, is something that every new mechanic should have. You don't need to go crazy fancy with one. I have a Harbor Freight one that I use on a daily basis. A lot of guys always make fun of me, but I use it because it has everything I need. It has this one is not my Harbor Freight one. This is my Blue Point one. But all you need is ohms, volts, amps. You need the basics on a multimeter. All you want to know is voltage and if ohms are going through a wire. If the wire has ohms or resistance. So get yourself a nice digital multimeter. All right. So along with your digital multimeter, your power probe, and your test light, you're gonna need some amp clamps. Now I will put a link in the description below to Scanner Danner's videos and a couple other guys that use these amp clamps and explain exactly how to use them. And I will put a video for that for you guys. But essentially, an amp clamp is a way for you to test how much amperage is going through a wire without cutting into the wire. Okay, so it's a nice and safe way to test circuits without piercing into or cutting into a circuit, essentially. You use this for getting like fuel ramp. You use it for a lot of different things. So I will put a link in the description below to these two amp clamps and videos for you guys to check out to show you how to use them. Along with your amp clamps, you're gonna need some fuse buddies. Now these bad boys go into a place of a fuse. So if you have a 10 amp fuse, you remove the fuse and you put this in there and you put the 10 amp fuse in here. And then what you use this for is use it alongside your amp clamp. Okay, there we go. And you could tap into a circuit very easily using your circuit buddies. And you could test how much amperage is going through that circuit. And it comes in handy, especially if you can't find the wire, or it just saves you a lot of time, to be honest with you. If you don't want to find a wire that goes to the fuel pump underneath the car, you just remove the fuse to that fuel pump and throw that in there, and then you get amperage coming out of that circuit. So fuse buddies are definitely important when you're using amp clamps. Something to really pick up once you're doing in-depth diagnostics. Along with your amp clamps, you can use a DMM with it, but I recommend you use a scope. This is a Vantage Pro, and I love this scope because it gives you everything you need in this tool. There's some other ones out there. The Varus has one. I know Pico has a really good scope too, but I like using the Vantage just because I'm used to it. A scope is essentially a really fast DMM. So this thing can give you voltage and ohm readings, but it also gives you waveforms. So that's really important when you're testing out circuits and seeing if the waveform looks good. So make sure you pick up a Vantage whenever you're doing in-depth diagnostics. Definitely something you're going to need. You need a scope when you're testing out electrical systems. Even when you're testing out sensors, all you're doing is getting the waveform of whatever the sensor you're testing and looking at it and making sure that the waveform looks good. So a scope is definitely important. Along with the scope, you are going to need some good leads. This lead is actually one of my favorites. This lead is actually one of my favorites. The reason why I like it so much is because it's a regular probe, right? But if you look inside here, it also has a piercing bed. And this bad boy will pierce any wire and it'll give you a reading from it. Of course, you gotta be really careful when you use it because you could damage some wires. I use it very sparingly. What I normally use instead of this wire or test lead is I hook up my piercers to a wire and I pierce the wire. So what you do is you grab the wire that you want to pierce and then you screw down the end of it and the piercer comes out and pierces the wire. And this comes in handy especially under dash and places that are tricky to get to. And I like it also because it only leaves one little piercing in the wire. Hard to see on camera, but you could see where it pierced right there. After you pierce a wire using this piercer, you gotta be sure you use some liquid electrical tape to make sure that you don't leave that wire exposed to the elements because rust can build up in there and give you a lot of problems. These piercers are great. You can also use them with your power probe. They go inside your power probe. You are going to be needing specific test leads and adapters because this is a male end, and then you need that connector going into your test leads. So this is I think this is a 10 gauge piercer, and this is a 12 gauge piercer, a little bit smaller. Do the exact same job. And then there's always this style too, which I'm not that big of a fan of, but I know a lot of guys like using them. The reason why I'm not a big fan of this one is because I think it leaves a bigger mark or bigger hole when you're piercing wire. So you got to be really careful. I don't like leaving a huge mark in my wires. So that's the reason why I don't use this one too much. Along with those piercers, you are going to be needing back probe pins. And these are the kinds that I use. The reason I like these is because they are pretty much secure all the way to the end of the tip. So the tip is always, it's sharp and it'll go into, back probing connectors. And I have a whole bunch of different ones. I have 90s, I have 45s, and I have straights. And I will put a link in the description below for the ones that I use. So you definitely need some piercers to back probe any connector you're trying to get a waveform from. And last but not least, gentlemen, we got our injector tester. The reason why I put this in here is because, well, it's an electrical component and I use it to test injectors. This thing actually saved my butt. It's only like 40 bucks and it helped me test some injectors that were causing a lean condition. So this thing is pretty great. What it does, it pulses, it gives you a pulse for 1, 2, or 3 seconds. And what it's for is to test out injectors, see how much flow is actually going through an injector. I like to put it into, I wanted to put it in this video just because it's an electrical component that could come in handy if for some reason you need to pulse a sensor or something. This could come in handy. I thought it was pretty cheap and it saved my butt, and I wanted to put it in here because I don't know where else to put it. Probably in a fuel system diagnostic and repair video. But anyways, electrical, gives you a 3 second, 2 second, or 1 second pulse. Comes in handy. But alright, gentlemen, that is it for all of the tools that you use to diagnose and repair electrical systems. If you have any more suggestions, please put them in the description below. We love to hear that. I want to see what tools you guys use because I might want to go pick some of them up. You know, I don't have everything, but these are the tools that I use and they've come in handy through my career. So please put any tool that you think that I missed in the description below, and I'll love to hear what you guys have to say. All right, gentlemen, thanks for watching. My name is Nestor Mendoza with The Mechanic OC. Check out the rest of my vlogs, subscribe and like the video, and share it. Let me know what you guys think in the description below. Take care, boys.